Hey, here's a good Second Amendment story coming out of Florida from from the governor, uh, Ron DeSantis. What the governor has done is submitted a draft of legislation to the Republican Senate and the House for consideration. Um, it is being characterized as anti-mob legislation that focuses on expanding Florida's existing stand your ground law. Now, uh, it expands the categories of issues called criminal mischief, in which deadly force can be used by a citizen to protect themselves against criminal mischief. And it goes to define in his proposal what those additional criminal mischief activities are, which then would become third-degree felonies in the state of Florida, which says uh, if it disrupts a business or an individual's pursuit of their own liberty, like walking around or driving their car, then deadly force can be used to stop that. It also uh, allows a person driving a car and who's now surrounded by people who are trying to either stop their vehicle or worse, to continue driving. And if anyone is injured in as that person is trying to get away in their vehicle, then there is no legal recourse. So the person may die, the person may have broken bones, but that's too bad. Don't get in front of a 4,000-pound car is is the idea in the legislation. Now, the left and progressives are quick to characterize this as there you go. You are enabling vigilantes, right? And every time I hear that, it makes me crazy uh, because those are clearly people who have no idea what they're talking about or what a vigilante is. A vigilante, by definition, delivers punishment for crimes, may or may not have been without a trial. That's punishment for crime. Being a vigilante is a felony, illegal. Individual citizens have no right to mete out justice. The only entity that can mete out justice is government. That's why we have government. Government punishes crimes. Individual citizens cannot. Individual citizens can only defend themselves against a crime. Now that's a big difference. That's a big difference. So any of you who are saying we're releasing vigilantes, anyone that acts as a vigilante is a criminal, is a felon, and they are trying to take over the role of government in being judge, jury, and executioner. Back in the day, that was called lynching, and that we don't do that. And because a person has a right to defend themselves against someone who believes they should be allowed, they should be allowed to create mischief like that. They should be allowed to burst into your store while you're in there and threaten you. That's no longer, by the way, protection of property. It's protection of your life and anyone else inside. But if you remember during the Rodney King riots, the rooftop Koreans, love those guys, they were putting warheads on foreheads. They were shooting at people. And to this day, not a single one has been charged with a crime, right? And if you go back and you look at the helicopter footage, the aerial footage, you can see what happens when the crowd gets the word that the Koreans were shooting at them. The entire mob, which was thousands, the entire mob took a whole berth around Koreatown. By the way, I used to live in Koreatown. You just don't mess with those guys. Now, to come back to current day, what DeSantis is doing is saying you have a right to peacefully protest. Keep it on the sidewalk. Don't block the street unless you have a permit to march in the street, and that's not a problem. You can go from this block to that block, whatever your permit says, and you can put your 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people in the street, and we will provide you police protection for traffic. But if you decide you're going to intentionally disrupt regular citizens from their exercising of their right, and then you try to harm them while they're doing that, then they have a right to use deadly force to get you out of their way. That deadly force could be they could shoot you outside the car, or they could run over your ass. Now, again, the left is saying, well, that's terrible. You can't allow people to do that because we have to be able to be angry. We have to be able to attack people. We have to be able to do that because of our rage. And that's kind of the language that you hear today, right? We have a right to our rage. Okay, then I have a right to shoot you in the melon. And then you don't have a rage problem anymore. Well, let me keep going. Some of the left and progressives are saying that it's cruel and unusual punishment. I will say again, an individual citizen cannot mete out punishment because that would make them a vigilante. Being a vigilante is a crime, a serious crime. It would also make you a revenge murderer in another context. But defending yourself, defending your loved ones, and defending your property is not being a vigilante. So this is something that's getting, like I said, it's a proposal from the governor, good for him, of Florida. Where it will go, because their legislative session doesn't start, I think, until January, we don't know. We don't know. But the big cities, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, Tampa, are saying, well, we can't allow that because that means that individual citizens will actually start defending themselves because we can't, like nobody's coming. Anyway, I won't get into the details of it, but one of the big ones is don't get in front of a 4,000-pound car. Don't do that. Because if you do, you're going to lose that battle. And there's a lot more people carrying guns in Florida today than there were 20 years ago when I lived there. And I'm glad to see that happen. So I put that out there for you to give some consideration. This initially came out in the Washington Post. I picked it up in the Miami Herald, so it's already started to trickle around. But pay attention to the language being used about this, right? And why people are freaking out. If such laws had been in place in Seattle or Portland, none of that would have happened. People would have stopped being stupid months ago because the consequence, and it would. So some of the left progressives saying it's going to freeze the First Amendment. It is not going to freeze the First Amendment. It's going to freeze bad behavior while executing what you believe is your First Amendment. No one's saying you can't peaceably protest, carry signs, yell, scream. What you cannot do is screw with other people while you're doing that. You can't. You cannot threaten other people while you're doing that. You can't go and screw with them while they're eating and bother people in their homes, because you feel you have some sense of guaranteed rage that you should be allowed to exhibit. God, and that's coming out of Portland, by the way. So anyway, that's what's going on. On your own, keep following it. Come back to this channel because I appreciate your help, any help. Subscribe, hit the like button, bell icon, and forward to other people if you happen to like the content from the channel. So with that, I'm going to say, as always, Thanks for watching. Carry on.